2 hours before it all ended, Trump wrote that a whole civilization would die tonight. That was Tuesday evening, the 8th of April, 2026. He had set an 8 p.m. Eastern deadline. Iran had not moved. Oil markets were in free fall. Shipping lanes that carry 20% of the world's daily oil supply had been effectively closed for weeks. And then, 90 minutes before the deadline, everything changed. The war started on February 28th. The United States and Israel launched a joint military offensive against Iran, targeting military leadership, nuclear program infrastructure, and strategic assets. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks across the region, strikes on Israel, strikes on Gulf Arab states, and deployed the single most powerful economic weapon available to any nation controlling a geographic choke point. It shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That narrow waterway at the mouth of the Persian Gulf carries roughly 20% of the world's oil and natural gas in peacetime. When Iran restricted passage, that supply stopped moving. Energy markets registered it immediately. Gasoline prices spiked across the globe. Countries that depend on Middle Eastern crude, China, Japan, South Korea, India, began facing supply disruptions they had no short-term answer for. Trump, facing domestic pressure from his own conservative base over rising fuel costs, had been demanding for weeks that Iran reopen the strait. He had pushed back his attack deadline twice before. On March 23rd, he granted a 5-day extension, citing progress in negotiations. But by April 7th, the language had escalated to a different register entirely. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again, Trump posted on Truth Social that morning. He had threatened to destroy Iran's power plants, bridges, and civilian infrastructure. Military and legal experts warned the campaign could devastate a nation of roughly 85 million people and potentially constitute war crimes. The 8 p.m. deadline sat over the region like a clock that nobody knew how to stop. Pakistan stopped it. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif posted publicly just hours before the deadline, requesting Trump extend his timeline by 2 weeks to allow diplomacy to produce results, and asking Iran's leadership to open the Strait of Hormuz as a goodwill gesture for the same period. Sharif described diplomatic efforts as progressing steadily, strongly, and powerfully. Trump said he knew Sharif well and considered him highly respected. At 6:32 p.m. Eastern, 90 minutes before the deadline, Trump posted his response on Truth Social. Based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran, agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks, Trump wrote. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. Time. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed Tehran's acceptance within minutes. If attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations, Al Jazeera Araghchi wrote. He thanked Pakistan for its last-minute intervention. Iran's Supreme National Security Council confirmed the agreement and declared that the country's war objectives had been achieved. Both sides claimed victory simultaneously. The White House press secretary said Trump had gotten the Strait of Hormuz reopened. Iran's Supreme National Security Council said it had achieved nearly all its war objectives. Trump described Iran's 10-point proposal, which includes the withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from regional bases, full sanctions relief, return of frozen Iranian assets, war damage payments, and a controlled passage protocol for the Strait of Hormuz as a workable basis on which to negotiate. He posted past midnight calling it a big day for world peace and said the U.S. would help manage the traffic buildup in the strait. Big money will be made, he wrote. Iran can start the reconstruction process. Markets moved before the ink was dry. International oil prices fell 13% on Tuesday night following the announcement. S&P 500 futures indicated the index could open more than 2% higher on Wednesday. Japan's Nikkei rose more than 2,600 points. The relief was global and immediate because the global energy system had been operating under maximum stress since the strait closure, and every major importing nation had been watching this deadline with genuine alarm. But the ceasefire is 2 weeks long. It is not a peace agreement. Iran's Supreme National Security Council explicitly stated the pause does not amount to a permanent end to the war. Peace talks between the US and Iran are expected to begin in Islamabad on Friday, April 10th, with Vice President Vance leading the American delegation. The 10-point Iranian proposal that Trump described as workable includes demands that would represent an extraordinary shift in US-Iran relations, full sanctions relief, withdrawal of combat forces from regional bases, and a Strait of Hormuz transit protocol that formally places passage coordination under Iran's armed forces, a condition Iran described as conferring upon it unique economic and geopolitical standing. Israel's position introduced immediate complications. Prime Minister Netanyahu's office stated that Israel supports the ceasefire with Iran, but said it does not apply to Lebanon, where Israel has been conducting military operations against Iranian-backed Hezbollah. Pakistan's prime minister had stated the ceasefire would apply in Lebanon. Netanyahu directly contradicted that. After the ceasefire came into force, at 8 p.m. Eastern, missiles were still launched from Iran toward Israel and Gulf states. The situation on the ground was not clean. Iranian state media had shown human chains forming in front of power plants in the hours before the deadline, Iranians physically positioning themselves as shields against the threatened infrastructure strikes. Trump had already touted the destruction of a major bridge near Tehran and threatened all of Iran's bridges and power plants. A strike earlier in the war hit an elementary school, killing approximately 170 children. A major university was bombed. Healthcare facilities sustained heavy damage. The ceasefire came at the end of more than 5 weeks of a conflict that legal experts described as an unprovoked attack in violation of international law. The 2-week window is now running. Islamabad talks on Friday, a larger agreement to potentially end the war as the stated goal. Iran's Supreme National Security Council hinted the ceasefire could extend beyond 2 weeks if negotiations proceed favorably. Israeli officials were privately skeptical, believing the deal could unravel quickly if Iran does not rapidly demonstrate concrete reopening of the strait. The world's oil supply chain, its shipping lanes, and the financial markets that price global risk are all watching the same clock. The strait is open for 2 weeks. What happens on April 22nd remains the question nobody can answer yet.